We're live somewhere over there.
Amazing. How are you today?
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, no, absolutely fantastic. How is everyone at home? Again, thank you so much for joining us here on the Ironcast. This is actually episode 4. I know
How
that...
exciting.
I know. I made a mistake when I uploaded the last one.
Did you?
Yeah, so I put it as episode 4, and I got heaps of messages from people, and they were...
They're like, where's episode 3?
Legit. I got people going, hey, where's episode 3? It's not on Spotify. Is it on YouTube? And then people that are watching on YouTube are like, oh, where's episode 3? Is it on Spotify?
No.
It's not on YouTube. And I was like, oh my God, I messed up. So by the time this one airs, the last one that is titled episode 4 now, whilst we're recording this one, that you watched thinking was episode 4 is going to be retitled as episode 3. And then this one is going to be episode 4. And I'll make sure of that. So,
I love it.
Yep. So anyway, Semi-Swole Simo here, Madeline Snacks Fitness over there. Today's podcast episode, we are going to be talking about women's health in fitness and bodybuilding. And
I love it.
Yeah, I definitely think we need to get some little sticks to put the microphone on.
I know.
Instead of just holding it
And
like...
plus we love the couch. So we love sitting here without something sitting on a desk in front of us. So
Did you ever get those chalk ices as a kid? They were like little...
chalk ice.
Yeah.
Look, he grew up in the UK, so strange things that he's had, I haven't had.
They're like little blocks of ice cream. They're about as big as that.
So basically a paddle pop.
No, because it didn't have a stick on it. It was basically just like a little rectangular...
Like a Maxi Bon.
3D. No, because a Maxi Bon had biscuits and stuff like that in it. This was just like a not a cube, because a cube is like square, right? But it was like a rectangle cube. What would you call that?
I'm not sure, but let's get on with this episode.
Yeah, but it was fully ice cream.
I can't even picture this.
No, it was fully ice cream, kind of shaped like this, but without the handle, and it was covered.
He's
in
waving his
chocolate.
microphone around, guys. So I don't know if you can properly hear him because he's like...
No, they can, because I can see it.
He's using it as the ice cream and the demonstration here.
I've just started, properly tracking all my food and that for prep next year. And so now I'm obviously wanting ice cream and that stuff. But let's get started on today's episode. We're going to talk about women's health in fitness and bodybuilding, because it's something that it doesn't really get spoken about enough. And the people that do talk about it, they don't actually know what they're talking about.
Real story.
Yeah, true story. So we're going to get stuck straight in and let Mads talk to you about her experience in prep as a female, and then I'm going to kind of rudely interrupt every now and then and break down why certain things happened and how you can fix that if it's happening to you right now as well. So you want to take us away?
Would you like to start with the topic of periods and the menstrual cycle, or would you like to start with food and emotional eating?
I think I want to talk about food and emotional eating first, because women are much more emotional people than men.
Yeah.
And that leads women to having a much more emotional attachment to food than men as well. So I want to kind of go straight into that there. And because I know you have a massive emotional attachment to food, not as much now, but you did a couple of years ago. It was food was your really kind of emotional, happy place. Whereas me, I've never been like that my whole life. So it's not something that I understand. So I want, why don't you tell me and everyone watching and listening about what it's like to be emotionally driven by food and how you kind of overcame that?
Oh, wow. I'm going to start by just talking about a couple of years ago. Honestly, it probably would have started about 4 or 5 years ago, where I discovered bodybuilding. I discovered getting into fitness and then flexible dieting. That was when I first was introduced to it. But I was one of those clients who didn't know better, and I tried to put in a lot of decadent, sweet things into my food and into my day because I didn't know better. My coach at the time probably was really new to the industry too. She was a fresh coach. She didn't really know what to educate me about either. So it was now, at that time, I didn't really have, my 3 to 4 meals a day. I didn't really know to put in quality protein. I didn't know what a complete protein was and an incomplete protein. So here I was having these massive sweet cravings, you know. All of a sudden I had macros to stick to, and I was like, damn, like that's awesome. I get to make this big wicked meal, you know, with all these sweet things, maybe twice a day, because that's all the macros I have for.
Yeah,
know?
I think we might have spoke about this previously, maybe in the second episode or even the first one.
Yeah.
But for those of you that are new, and this is like the first time you're listening, the first episode is Get to Know Us. So once you finish listening to this one, go back and watch that one, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel and all that kind of stuff. But to put it into context for you, if you haven't heard this story before, I first met Mads about 3.5 years ago now. And this is when we first started dating. I'd go around to her house and, you know, like you'd stay overnight and it'd be like, oh, like, you know, ooh, I'm staying overnight at my new girlfriend's house, you know, but like in the morning, Mads would have like a chopping board of
Pancakes,
stuff, you know.
like
It'd be like there'd be like a jar of peanut butter,
Yeah.
and a jar of Biscoff and a tub of Yo
I
Pro.
don't think Biscoff was a thing then, but I definitely had the
Definitely was the
YoPro
peanut
out.
butter. The Yo Pro was there,
Yeah.
and there was like 3 or 4 crumpets, and then like, you know, some honey and stuff like that. And it was like
Syrups
she'd
and
eat the
stuff.
crumpets, and then like, I mean, like most of us, we'd have the crumpets and we'd put the peanut butter on it.
I
Like,
also was obsessed with Macro Mike then.
Yeah.
So I was eating all of this incomplete
Yeah.
protein. You know how it's marketed as like
oh no, Macro Mike is a
protein and-
complete protein.
I don't know about
No, it
that.
is. No, it is. No, because
some of his products.
no, because
No?
he uses peanut protein. And
No, it's pea protein for some of it.
but pea protein is a complete protein source. Yeah. But yeah, Mads would have like me and you, like we'd be normal and we'd put the peanut butter on the crumpet. Mads would
Yeah.
eat the crumpet and then put the peanut butter on the scale and then zero the scale and spoon feed herself peanut butter until she'd reached her like 30,
It was
40
kind
grams
of
of peanut butter.
unhealthy because it was like a massive portion. It wasn't just like
Yeah.
20 grams, you know?
Yeah.
So I was getting most of my protein from like peanut butter, which you should actually treat as a fat. So honestly, it was not a healthy kind of like portion size at that time. So as time went by, like I didn't have a really like, you know, rubbish upbringing with food, guys. I had a really healthy background with food. We had like really good meals when we were younger. Like there was never kind of like binge and restrict, but I always was exposed to like skinny bodies and stuff like that. And I think most of the things that I saw was influenced by social media. And definitely back in the day, I had Pinterest. I used to pin all these idealistic bodies. And I was like, damn, like I guess the only way that they got these bodies is to run. So I used to run. I never used to lift weights. You know, I maybe got home like maybe once a week, you know, after my run and maybe did like some home weights and that's about it. But I used to run and make it a goal to hit like 5 to 8K a day. It was crazy. So here I was trying to chase a thigh gap. I still remember like there was this one picture that I had on my phone and I was like so proud of my legs. You know, they were skinny and it was, that was the skinniest I've ever been. Do not chase that. I don't desire going back to that kind of thing. But as time went by, like now I think last year I'm going to use it as a quick kind of reference to like when
That's what I wanted to talk about last year. Yeah.
my food qualities were still kind of just really like not rubbish, but they weren't that smack bang on, and my body composition actually didn't really look that great. I looked really more like aligned to a bikini category than I could achieve conditioning wise going into fitness or figure like I actually wanted to. So it really like affected the way my body looked because of my food choices. So then I was like, of course you're going to be freaking hungry during prep. Like, you know, but it's something that you just have to be okay with. And that didn't really click for me until this year when I did my prep this year. And I was like, yeah, I actually just have to live in the moment where you're just freaking hungry for hours. Drink some damn water and go get busy. Like that's when it changed.
Yeah, but how about when last year you would associate food with emotions, you know? So like there was, I guess what I remember from last year is the way the house smelt in the morning. So like, Mads has got this, idea around if it fits your macros as opposed to flexible dieting last year, where breakfast would be, like breakfast cereal with YoPro and some like sugar-free caramel syrup or something like that. But then it'd be like heated up in the microwave. So it'd be like almost
Oh, it
like
was
a
a
hot
mug cake.
Yeah, it was like a mug cake, like a hot dessert. And so like the morning, the house would smell like, cake and dessert, and
Yeah.
that was your breakfast. And I tried to get you to have, oats and protein powder or like, some meat sauce, something like that. And be like, this is going to be so much better for you. You'll fuel yourself throughout the day, heaps better, much more sustained energy release and stuff like that. But, like there was almost a refusal to do it. And I think you might have done it for a couple of days, but then went straight back to, the dessert breakfasts.
Yeah.
Like, why was that?
You know why? Because I think my subconscious, like, because of the wording that you used, like, oh, that's not sustained energy, oh, it's not great for you, like, that didn't mean anything. But if you would have said that's going to affect how you look on stage and you're actually not going to look like the figure girl you want to look like, I probably would have stopped it then and there, to be quite honest.
I did say that.
I don't remember that though.
Yeah.
Like my brain did not tweak to that because
Yeah.
I was so focused on what I was putting in my body because I was so freaking hungry.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. And how did it make you feel eating the mug cake over eating a bowl of oats? Like not physically, but emotionally. Once you'd finished eating the mug cake or once you'd finished eating the bowl of oats, what was the difference in the emotional feeling there?
I think I felt when I changed to oats way more proud of myself because I knew that, yeah, it was nice. Yeah, I still today have my bowl of oats. Like I haven't even changed my breakfast from my prep this year through to now because the habits that you have with just like better foods, it makes you feel less craving towards like
I'm trying to wean an answer out of you here. I really want to get like
it's difficult. It's
I know
really
it
hard
is.
to
It's
wrap
really
your head
hard.
around.
Yeah. When you have an emotional attachment with food, it's hard to see that you have an emotional attachment
It
with
is.
food, So it's like, and you can see that now. Like you at home know exactly what I'm trying to get out of Mads right now, but you can see that it's really hard for her to actually say it now. There's an emotional difference between choosing to eat the dessert breakfast over choosing to eat the sustained energy oats and like whey protein or something like that. There's an emotional choice there. And what is
Actually-
that emotional choice? Why did you choose to have the mug cake over the, not because I said, oh, it's not sustained and all
Yeah.
that. It's like there's an emotional reason there, and I want to hear that.
I know exactly what it is now. It's a massive dopamine hit. You feel really freaking good. You
From eating the cake.
You feel this immense pleasure because
Yeah.
it's like a massive happiness that's associated with chocolate, with like, a caramel egg or whatever the heck you might put with it or on top of it. That when you eat cake, it's like happiness in a cup, right? Like you don't get that when you have an egg on toast. It's just not the freaking same.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's not like for you. I mean, for me, it is because I don't have a sweet tooth. But
Yeah.
for people with a sweet tooth, they're at home now listening. They're going, no, she's so right. I get mad happiness from
Yeah.
eating cake over eggs on toast. Yeah.
Yeah. And that even carries through to today, except the hardest thing for me has been really moderating that intake. And for me to moderate it means literally just scheduling in only like 2 pieces at night or something. And even to today, as much as I hate to say it, I actually do need to just like not have it a lot for me to not crave it a lot. And if that works for you, then do it.
So is that how you kind of got over it? And because this prep now leading into it, you stuck to your foods. There was a couple of times where you would have like almost like half a lettuce, like.
Look, there was a
But-
lot of times I wanted to fill my belly with something.
But it was actually like that. It wasn't an extreme period of time that it went for, and the way, you know, like I'm looking at it and I'm like, no, it's pretty normal for prep. You know, I'm like watching you in the kitchen and you're doing something and you do it for like a day or two, and I'd be like, hey, come on, you know, and you'd be like, oh yeah, all right, yeah, fair
All
enough.
right, yeah.
You know,
Probably should scale that amount of
yeah.
like cabbage back.
yeah.
Not cabbage, but lettuce.
So
Yeah.
how did you then make that switch? Because it literally, guys listening, it honestly was almost a switch like that, where it was, you know, no more dessert cakes, no more, you know, like silly kind of unnutritious food, to whole foods. And it was like the day was full of, you know, oats and fruit and vegetables and meat
proper
and
stuff.
starchy carbs, which is essential to building a physique and providing energy to the body, which is what we'll talk about in a bit as well. How did you make that switch?
I honestly just got sick of my own shit. And I was like, I really just have to be really really rational here in my thought process, and like ask myself, is this food still going to carry on? Like, am I going to want to get over this habit? Like, you know, in 3 years' time, are you still going to have these habits where you're still craving food? You're still almost uncontrollable. And like my way to control it was to track it in and still enjoy the mug cake. But I'm like, do you want to win? Like, what are you doing this for? If you keep doing this and you don't want to win, why are you even doing it?
And it's almost like that food rules your life as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, even to today, it still rules the back of my mind. I'm still like, oh man, I just really just want to eat over my macros. And like, it's even harder when you reverse out of a show, because all of a sudden you can, and no one's going to pull you up on it. You have to pull yourself up on it yourself. Like, yeah.
I do.
Really?
Yeah, no, I pull you up on it all the time.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I do, yeah. She knows that, but it's
Yeah.
good. But yeah, so...
I think another turning point as well, because we live together, I was like, I know you produce winners.
Yeah.
If I'm going to do this right, I'm going to do exactly as you say. That was another thing.
Yeah, and there was, I feel like the other side of it was last year, you didn't want to do what I said because there's an emotional attachment to me, not a financial attachment as a coach. You know, there's an emotional attachment.
Some people can't make that differentiation either through their preps, and that's fine.
And then so you wouldn't listen to me when I'm saying don't do that, you know, but after you tried to do it your way with the foods that you wanted last year and you didn't get the result you wanted, but then you saw the athletes that I put on stage and the results that I had, maybe there was an element of like, oh, actually, you know, I'll do.
Yeah,
'cause I want that.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think there definitely was, like, even just coming to shows and seeing like what the guys went through, and all the athletes that, you know, you were prepping, and like your protocols for them. I think there became like a lot more understanding of what was actually required and the things that I wasn't doing.
Okay. So for the girls and boys that have emotional attachment to food, what would be like your one, like if you could give them like 20 seconds of advice that would help them get over that emotional attachment to food and see food as a fuel source, not a emotion, what would that be?
I would write down your goal. Like, why are you really doing bodybuilding if that's what you're doing? And if you're not doing bodybuilding, why are you doing this for you? Does it feel good? Like, this should be a question that you write down and answer for yourself. Does it feel good to be triggered by food all the time? Does it feel good to almost like be a slave to like having that feeling take over your mind all the time? And if not, then what does it make you feel? And what also would it make you feel if you didn't have that pull? And like, if your body had so much more like result from not having that food anymore, how would that make you feel?
Exactly. So you'd get like a dopamine hit and an emotional hit from eating cake, but that's only lasts you know, for a second or two. It's like it's gone, it's been there and gone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but like
10 seconds max.
But how much of a dopamine hit do you get from looking fantastic?
Oh, look, it's freaking hard to change your foods up because you know that it's not going to give you the dopamine hit, and it's easier to choose the sweet food,
But
always.
but that doesn't give you the dopamine hit, but you
no.
still feel good though, right? From
feel-
looking fantastic.
Yeah, you feel so much better. And you always have to remind yourself, though, you can't just be like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to choose this better food because I know it's great for my body.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. Like, you have to consciously choose it all the time and reassure yourself and remind yourself about why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Because later on in the day, your self right now is going to freaking thank you for it. You know, your future self is going to thank you for it, like in 5 hours time.
Yeah, cool. So leaving that right, I think that's heaps of information. It's like 20 minutes basically on like how to get over emotional eating and how you did that. That's fantastic. So like, I didn't realize that you had so much going on. Even though I live with you, I didn't realize there was so much involved in your headspace on what it was.
Well, that process, I'm not going to lie, I have to
hard,
run through that about 6 or 7 times a day.
See, I didn't know. I thought you were just over it.
No.
Because I don't understand. Because I don't have an emotional attachment with
I've
food.
done that
That's it.
same process about 4 times this morning.
I have an emotional attachment to you, my dog, and my cars. That's it. So.
I love it.
Yeah. So I want to talk to you now about women's health. Now, when we talk about women's health, we don't necessarily mean like, oh, have you got a cold and flu symptoms and you're a woman? I mean like, you know, women's health, menstrual cycles, hormone patterns, that type of stuff. And it's not something that gets spoke about enough, not just in the fitness industry, but in the world.
Yeah.
You know, because there's like the amount of people that come up to me and they go, I wanted to get coaching, and they're on the pill. And I'm like, well, I've had girls that have come up to me, they're on the pill to stop, and they're like, oh, it's to stop me getting pregnant. I'm like, cool, how long have you been taking the pill for? Oh, since I was 12. I'm like, so you were sexually active at 12 years old then? And they kind of first initially look at me like, wow, did you just ask me that? And I'm like, yeah, I did just ask you that. And they're like, oh no, I started the pill when I was 12 because I had bad skin.
Yes.
And I'm like, so you've essentially been using a steroid, because that's what it is. It's a hormone, which is a steroid.
Years.
So you've been using a steroid for 15 years for 2 different reasons, you know. So again, like, you know, women's health isn't something that's spoken about enough. And this is going to trigger a lot of girls, a guy on the internet now talking about women's health. But
It's going to trigger me.
I really want you to keep listening and not turn off and not be like, you're a guy, you don't understand, you have no idea. You know, like, you're right. I don't know what it feels like to have a period. But being a registered sports nutritionist and accredited, I understand a lot about what goes on with regards to nutrition in sport and female bodies, mainly hormone patterns. So Mads, tell me and the audience, when during your prep, did you lose your period? If and when?
Yeah. I lost my period it would have been 7 months ago now, because we're 1 month post show. So it was 6 months before the actual show date. By then we'd been prepping for about, we'd been in a really big cut for about 3-4 months then. So maybe about 5 months before the show, I lost it. And then I just had like some spotting, you know, like for about a month or so, and then literally nothing from there. That's when like my body started to look really a lot leaner. Like that's when my food choices even changed. So, I think straight from the get-go though, from this prep, like I had really good food choices, like Simo was around the whole time. But yeah, I mean, I stopped tracking then because I usually track it like on my Flow tracker. So if anyone knows that app called Flow, you can track your, you know, hormone cycle and stuff like that. Yeah, and I think he just made a note to me then.
Yeah, dude, like, I'm going to bring it up in a sec.
Yeah,
I'll bring it up.
For those of you, it might shock you, I'm not really sure, but I'm not a natural athlete. So, you know, there's different types of things you can take. There's different types of like, you know, levels that you can really go to in terms of like steroids and things like that to be able to reach a specific type of like look or conditioning on stage. So I
wanted to bring that up because it's important for the viewers to hear it, because, you know, like I know there's a lot of people, and even a lot of my male clients listen to this, or past clients as well, that they don't even go to the gym anymore, that didn't know that fact, that you had used, you know, anabolics
Yeah.
before.
I will quickly pull you up there. So for last year's prep, I was completely natural,
Yes.
and I actually did want to do a prep completely natural. But
Yeah.
I think when I got into this year, I made a conscious choice. This actually goes back into our last episode that I won't really go into
Yeah.
yet. But like it is always a choice.
Yeah.
FYI. But I did decide to not do this naturally this time because I don't want kids for starters. We decided
Yeah.
that pretty much from
But-
date number one.
Yeah.
And number two, like I'm okay with the fact that like to reach a level that I wanted to get to for my body, I think I was okay with that.
Yeah, cool. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because you mentioned that you lost your menstrual cycle 5 months previous, or 5 months prior to the show. Now, there's a lot of girls that listen to this that are natural competitors. They compete ICN, be them, my clients or, somebody else's clients. I know they listen and they'll be like, whoa, that was like crazy. I didn't lose mine until like 6 weeks out or something like that. And like as a natural competitor, if you're losing your cycle 5 months out of a show as a natural competitor, that is really, really, really bad. Really bad. And I want to touch on why you lose your menstrual cycle. Okay. So, there's a specific condition and it's called Red S. It gets called REDS a lot. And it basically stands for relative energy deficiency in sport. Right now, it has been linked to some male athletes as well, and there has been studies of some men experiencing Red S, but it predominantly is more shown in women because of some of the things that it does. But it can absolutely affect men as well as women, although it was only thought to affect women at one point, but it can 100% affect men. So Red S is, like I said, relative energy deficiency in sport. And basically what it is it's low energy during sporting performance, essentially. And it has certain side effects. So some of the side effects are things like loss in menstrual cycle, bone mineral density loss, impaired cardiovascular health, poor skin health, hair loss, that type of stuff, like thinning of the hair, that type of stuff. And
even down to like, what about your central nervous system?
Yeah, absolutely. It really does start to shut the body down from the inside out. And because what happens is when we prep and when I diet my athletes, and this is something that every single accredited sports nutritionist in Australia does. And I use the word accredited because there's a lot of people that say, oh, I'm a sports nutritionist. And it's like they did some kind of like, I'm not going to say the name of the courses, but they basically did a Mickey Mouse course and they don't get the use of the specific calculators and tools that I have from my governing body, where we look at your, or they don't have the education to even understand what it is. We look at your energy availability, right? And your energy availability is not just your calorie intake. Your energy availability is how many calories you are giving your body per kilogram of lean tissue. Okay. So that is essentially means that, if your energy availability is calculated at 35, which is good, right? Then you're giving your body 35 calories per kilo of lean tissue to function, right? Which is good because the calories are not just used to walk and lift weights. They're used for hormone function and stuff like that throughout the body as well. So if you're starving the body and you're not giving it much energy, then certain functions are just going to stop
working.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see Red S in athletes and basically when they overtrain and overdiet for an extended period of time. And when I'm coaching athletes, I'm looking at their energy availability. And when their energy availability starts dropping below kind of like 29, 28, I'm starting to think, okay, cool, I need to incorporate things like diet breaks
Yeah.
to give their body a break and give them more energy. And I can't increase their calories to over maintenance, to bring their energy availability back up, because we haven't reached the goal yet of lost enough body fat to, win a Figure Pro show, for example.
Exactly.
And the reason energy availability drops is because we have to drop calories in order to lose weight.
Yeah.
So naturally, like, your energy availability is going to get lower when you're dieting because you're dropping your calories. And the only way you can really kind of beat that, I guess, is to make sure that before you start dieting, you've really worked hard to build your calories up to a really, really nice high place where you're maintaining at a really high level of calories.
Yeah. Otherwise, your calories are going to get pretty shotty really quick.
Yeah. So I wanted to kind of break you off there and be like, yeah, cool. You did lose your menstrual cycle 5 months before, but there was a lot to do with the fact that you weren't a natural competitor that had, to do with that. Because by using, Anavar, you've added an exogenous hormone to the body, which has changed the hormone profile inside of the body.
Exactly.
Which, and we know that the female menstrual cycle is ruled by hormones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you want to mention anything else that, I was having or using in the process as well down the track?
Look, later on towards the end of it, we did add a little bit of clenbuterol into the prep, a really, really low dose.
Really just I don't know, it's like one of those things where you don't want to go in extreme either with anything that I was using, by the way. So anything that I was using wasn't at a high dosage at all. Like, it was really just to...
Funny, actually, if we didn't use clenbuterol in your prep, you wouldn't have got as lean. So maybe you would have done better in fitness.
Maybe I would have done well in fitness.
Yeah, because you were too lean for that. So yeah, no, well, never mind.
I liked my conditioning, to be honest. I wanted to go the extra mile with the conditioning. So I was really happy.
Yeah, cool. But now post-show, you're what, like a month or two post-show now? Like 6 weeks?
I'm 4 weeks post-show now. Yeah, I'm only 3 kilos heavier,
so
actually.
it's kind of too soon to be like, oh, I've got my period back now.
Yeah.
It's only been 4 weeks, which is kind of the normal
recovering.
cycle anyway.
Yeah, the body's still pretty kind of tedious at this point. So I'm just like using quite similar food that I had like in prep because I knew that worked. So I was like, well, and plus, guys, it just helped my mentality around like the cravings and stuff like that we were discussing earlier. Like, I actually tried a few days on different foods like omelets and stuff like that for breakfast, but honestly, it triggered me again because it was a little too different to what I'd been using for like 6 months straight. So
Did you lose your cycle in your first prep last year?
No, I actually kept it all the way through, and prep was called off like 6 weeks before the show was kind of cancelled. So
So we can kind of attribute then the loss in the menstrual cycle to the steroid use.
I would say so.
Yeah, because not everyone loses their cycle. Not every female will lose their cycle in prep.
Yeah.
I've known some girls to go all the way through, and they've been like figure lean all the way through to stage, and they've had their period the week before they've got on stage.
Yeah,
I've seen that. And I've seen other girls who would lose their period 2 months before. And their energy availability could be the same. Like their actual measured and calculated energy availability could be, the same. So it's not like a rule of thumb, like as soon as your energy availability drops below 28, you're fucked. No. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not like that.
It's really down to the person and also what kind of like things that they're using like on top of, what they're already doing.
Yeah. And the way to overcome this as well, ladies, if you're suffering this, if you've dieted for an extended period of time and you haven't got your menstrual cycle back now, the way to really kind of get your cycle back is to not exercise as hard and increase your calories. And I know that for some of you listening,
that would be
I know,
scary for
I know,
girls.
that might be like the hardest thing for you to do in the world. But you have to remember that having a menstrual cycle as a female is important. It doesn't define you. It doesn't, you're not a woman if you don't have one.
No.
But it's important for your hormonal function in your body to do that, because your body works different to mine, whereas testosterone in me peaks every single morning when I wake up, right? Because of, cortisol levels and the way that the male body works. But for a female, testosterone levels peak once a month, and we can attribute strength training programs and stuff like that. We can program those around menstrual cycles and progress as well, because muscle gain and fat loss is ruled by hormones.
Exactly.
And if you don't have a menstrual cycle because of extended period of dieting, the progress that you make is going to be it's going to be futile. It's going to be so small.
Very minimal. And also this is prominent in ladies who are older, who don't have menstrual cycles anymore, and they're wondering why they're not making that quicker progress, that someone who's 21 is making. It's this is exactly why.
When we're saying older as well, we're not meaning ladies that have been through menopause. We're, necessarily maybe...
Oh, I was.
Oh, you were? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No.
I actually do have some older clients, and they still expect incredible results. And even though we can lose fat, we can build muscle, it is very slow.
Yeah, of course.
But going back to where we were,
So... I want to tell you about a lady that I coached years ago who came to me for prep, and I was very reluctant to prep her for a very long time. And I worked with her for probably about 18 months before I even entertained the idea of putting her on stage, because she had the worst relationship with food I had ever met, but she had the most amazing genetics that I've ever seen. Megan Quinn, remember her?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. First ever figure show, first timer, won the open class against girls that had been competing 5 to 10 years. And she stood there in the overall and almost took the overall out as well.
Crazy.
Yeah. So Megan come to me with very bad skin, and not like acne skin. I'm talking it was kind of gray and clammy and flaky skin, where it just didn't look very healthy. Very thin hair, almost to a point where you could see her scalp, through her hair, right?
Wow.
And no period, no menstrual cycle. And I asked her, say, how long have you not? Because it's one of the questions I ask girls, have you got a regular menstrual cycle? And she's like, no, I don't. I'm like, when was the last time you had a period? And she's like, I don't remember.
It kind of paints a picture of where they've been with their calories as well, or their exercise.
So I said, cool, how many times do you train a week? And she's like, oh, about 13 or 14. And I'm like,
oh man, that's a long
So almost twice a day, right? And she was eating about 1,000 calories. So I stopped her from doing that. And I said, okay, cool. We're going to have a deload week. That's the first thing we're going to do.
Yeah.
Right. You've got 4 days of training.
Right? 15 deload from 15 years.
You should have seen the look on her face. It was like, right? And I was like, 4 days this week, 4 days next week. And these are your calories. And I bumped her calories up by 600 calories a day.
Oh, she would have freaked out.
Massive freak out. But she came in 2 weeks later and she looked radiant.
Wow.
Right? Absolutely radiant. And it took about 3 to 6 months, which is normal as well. About 3 to 6 months for her to get her menstrual cycle back, which is very normal for it to take that long. So if you are suffering from red S at the moment, or, amenorrhea, irregular menstrual cycle, that's a huge word. If you're suffering from an irregular menstrual cycle at the moment, or absent menstrual cycle, because you've been dieting and training extremely hard for a long period of time.
Or you've had a really bad reverse with another coach.
Yeah.
That is also a situation that I've actually just helped someone reverse from.
But if that's you, if you've had that irregular menstrual cycle or your absent menstrual cycle, increase your calories.
Yeah.
Drop your training back for a couple of weeks, deload, and then just don't go back to that kicking your ass in the gym every day like you were,
Yeah.
because it's very important. And if you're struggling with it, please reach out to us, and I'm happy to give you free advice on how you can do that as well, because it's massively important. It's something I'm passionate about. That, if there's any girls listening to this now who are not a client and they don't have a cycle, reach out, send us a message. Link is in the description below, and I'll help you out with that, because it's something that I am actually quite passionate about.
Yeah. And you were discussing contraception before.
Yeah, contraception. I want to talk about refeeding syndrome first, and then I want to talk about contraception.
Sounds good. Yeah.
So do you know
this is a massive value.
It is huge, and it's a long episode. Do you know what refeeding syndrome is?
No, please tell us.
Okay. Refeeding syndrome, it actually happened, okay? And some of you listening are going to remember this. And I'm like, I'm going to use for a reel over here, right, on the camera stand. I'm like this and everything. And if you remember, there was a young lady who competed in the ICN Queensland show, bikini category. That's all I'm going to say. Because I'm not going to say her name. I'm not going to say her coach, because it's not fair on her, and it's not fair on her coach, because her coach is an absolutely fantastic man. But she didn't do her reverse.
Okay.
Right? She went out and gorged on everything.
Was this one of the ones that you saw in hospital?
Yes. And she gorged on everything she could get her hands on for a couple of days, like 2 or 3 days. And she wound up in hospital vomiting up black.
Oh my God.
And her words were like, it was like tar, coming out of her mouth.
Yeah.
And so refeeding syndrome is when you diet for an extended period of time, you basically have changed everything inside of your body.
Yeah.
Your energy availability is so low. Your body, when it's coming back to eating more food, it doesn't really know what to do with excess food,
Yeah.
But refeeding syndrome is going just crazy with that, and you just massive uptake in vitamins, minerals, glycogen, water uptake, and it's like an overload. And the body has homeostasis. And what happens when you have this massive gorge of food, the body doesn't know what to do with it all, because your levels of water and glycogen and all your essential vitamins and minerals are just fucked all over the place, that it can cause death. So that's basically it for today's episode. I will come back to the pill, the contraceptive pill. I will come back to that at another date. We had to call this episode short there because just got a visitor has knocked on the door to record a future podcast. But yeah, that's it for today's episode, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Sorry I did have to cut this episode short. The last thing I wanted to talk to you about was the contraceptive pill, and I will be bringing that up with you in a later episode. But I understand there's so much information for you to get over in today's episode. So please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to the Spotify. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. Big dog.